Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowery.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening. Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowery. I'm an exercise physiology and sports nutrition professor of almost 20 years now, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
And this is Phil Stevens. I'm a strength coach. I do powerlifting, handling games, a bunch of other stuff. So,
Dr. Mike Nelson, owner of Extreme Human Performance, faculty member at the Carrick Institute, and I'm actually back home as of the other day. I had to get back for the Iron Maiden concert last night.
Oh, nice.
So you guys got Iron Maiden. I got nothing but Bob Seger coming to town.
Bob Seger is good.
But no, but it's a different level.
I'd still prefer Iron Maiden. I had the choice.
Yeah, exactly.
It was an amazing show. It was really, really good.
Rather Run to the Hills.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they played some of the classics. A lot of the new stuff, and I mean, Bruce Dickinson's almost 60 years old. To see him run around stage and sing the whole time for well over 2 hours is super impressive.
It is impressive, especially because those guys, I at least presume they live pretty hard lives. You know, as far as it's not like they're eating chicken breast and broccoli and going to do their morning cardio. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, depends on the person. But even then, I mean, man, if you're doing everything right and you've got people cooking for you and you've got all that stuff, you're like, their tour is spread out super far. And I mean, granted, he flies their own, custom plane and everything. But still, that's a lot of travel, a lot of time zones, setup, takedown, all that stuff is not easy.
Right, yeah. All right, well, let's get into some... I got a bunch of news from the Institute of Food Technologists.
Strength and muscle sport news.
I share this.
We get to see them.
Yeah, we're going to go actually see them for real. I was going to say, I get to share this every once in a while when they do their monthly wellness newsletter, or this isn't all just wellness. But yeah, this is where Mike and I are actually going next week in Vegas. But just run down some basic stuff. And I did pull some authors and actual websites just so I'm offering more if people want to follow up. The first one, FDA will extend the compliance date for nutrition labeling. So the Food and Drug Administration, Office of Nutrition and Food Labeling, updated its, quote, changes to the Nutrition Facts Panel webpage, close quote, and they extended their compliance date. Listeners, you've probably heard us talk about some of the changes in the food labels. Like they've got the calories number really large, a huge font. They've got stuff like added sugars. For example, you can eat an apple, but it doesn't have added sugar, and that was controversial and that sort of stuff. We've had guests on the show talking about all these industry groups that come out of the woodwork. Anyway, they're extending that. So I don't know. It looks like by a year, if I'm reading this right. So they're going to delay that. You might not see the new food labels for a while FDA gives these industry groups their quote-unquote guidance. I don't know. To me, I think it's probably more like lobbying from like the Sugar Refiners Association and stuff like that. Anyway, so food labels, the new ones might be delayed. Next, sales growth of U.S. fast casual chains dips. So this is a segment like Chipotle, right? It's fast, but it's casual. The places that kind of draw you in, but then, the interior's like made of stainless steel and it kind of makes hard on your butt and pushes you out kind of thing. The growth significantly outpaced other restaurant segments, right, industry segments, but it lagged compared to 2015 and 2014. It says, from a chain-level perspective, the struggles of Chipotle had a substantial impact on the overall performance of the top 250 because it's the second largest fast casual chain, and its sales actually dropped by 13% in 2016. I think a lot of the food scare stuff, the microbiological scare, drove people away. But it says, look for specialty and health-focused concepts to continue to shine and move up the ranks in this fast casual restaurant category. That's from Technomic.com. Top 250 fast casual chains dips. Anyway, next up, again, just shotgunning today here before we get to some listener questions. U.S. consumers consider snacks to be treats. While consumers may be growing more health conscious with their food choices, it seems there's still room for life's little indulgences. New research from Intel reveals that top reason for Americans for them to snack is to treat themselves. 50% of Americans say they snack as a treat, and more than 1/4 agree that taste is more important than health when it comes to their snacks. It says, don't dismiss, though, that there is a self-care and health motivator. 1/3 of consumers say most snacks they eat are healthy, and over 1/4 say they are snacking on healthier foods compared to a year ago. So it seems contradictory to me, right? First they say that people choose taste first, and then they say still about 1/3 of people are trying to eat healthier snacks. So that's from Mintel.com. Top reasons consumers say they snack to treat themselves. Next up, vegetarian diets may help people lose more weight than a conventional diet. So I try to be fair, not just the anti-vegan here. But a new study published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition suggests vegetarians lose weight more effectively and improve their metabolism by reducing muscle fat compared to other low-calorie diets. Interesting. There were 74 people. They were type 2 diabetics, and I think that's the important thing to tease out there, because their metabolism is broken, I think, in many ways compared to the average healthy person, if you consider an average person healthy. Participants on the vegetarian diet ate mostly vegetables, grains, legumes, fruits, and nuts, with animal products limited to 1 low-fat yogurt per day. That's what they allowed them to have. The conventional diet they compared it to, it wasn't a junk food diet. It met European diabetes recommendations. So there's a quote here. Vegetarian diets proved to be the most effective for weight loss, says study author Hanna Kailova, director of clinical research at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. However, we also showed that a vegetarian diet is much more effective at reducing muscle fat and thus improving metabolism. So it says this may be important for people who are trying to lose weight. And this is, again, from Hanna Kailova, Kahleova. The effect of a vegetarian versus conventional hypocaloric diabetic diet on thigh adipose tissue distribution in subjects with type 2 diabetes. Interesting. I don't know, reduce muscle fatness. That may be similar to what we were talking about a few weeks ago, that the high sodium diets tended to increase munching and appetite and that sort of thing, whereas you would think that a diet rich in a lot of the plant foods that they mentioned in the yogurt, it might be, lower in sodium, higher potassium kind of thing. Maybe that plays a role. Maybe micronutrients are playing a bigger role in muscle loss and muscle fattiness than the if it fits your macros guys would want to hear. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of been my gut feeling all along. I mean, there's not a ton of data in that area, though. But again, just anecdotally with clients, I've had, people who done other, we'll say, dietary approaches that were very low in micronutrients, and I've had them eat a lot more vegetables or make different specific smoothies, or maybe even add just a couple food-based supplements, and pretty much everyone does much better. Their appetite even anecdotally seems to be better, even at the same calories and things of that nature. And granted, I'm changing adding more fiber and food and volume and things of that nature too, so it's not a direct comparison. But the interesting part too is that progress seems to be better, and also joint pain, kind of little niggly joint issues, things of that nature tend to get better too.
Right on, yeah. I know I've experienced that in the last 6 months. I've really eaten a ton of basically chicken and unprocessed veg. I get frozen veg and just nuke it, and just the fact that I'm eating less. And I mean, I love pizza, but some of the saltier stuff isn't quite the staple. Not that it was ever a big staple for me, but tons of vegetables. I think that's the key with this stuff, right? And whether it's pH balance or less sodium or whatever's happening. I think about how bodybuilders diet. That's what I just did. I just regressed back to my chicken and vegetables sort of contest-like diet. It's not nearly that meticulous, but Yeah, I do think it plays a role. And it's a good point about joints and inflammation and all that kind of crap. So eat tons of fruits and vegetables, legumes, even when I think you're hammering the calories. Like Phil, like you talk about, get the healthy stuff in, then go indulge, for the calories kind of thing.
Yeah, and I still think that's the best route. Is everybody, no matter what you're doing, set some kind of baseline diet. Here's what I have to get in, and then when you're going up, you just add stuff on that.
Yeah.
If you have your meats and veggies and eggs and blah 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 blah, then have this base of good stuff, and then add the calories as needed.
It's actually very similar to what I tell university students. I've told them for years. I call it the 1-for-1 rule. Like, if you normally go get Big Mac and fries, just do something healthy first. So go eat a grilled chicken sandwich first, then move on to your Big Mac after that. At least then you're getting some of the staples in what I would call a training diet in. But it's they can comply with it as well, right? Yeah. So. One more. Indulgent descriptions may increase veggie consumption. So this is sort of related. A research letter published in JAMA, Internal Medicine, suggests that people who choose healthy foods more often will do so if the vegetables are described in new and exciting ways. The Stanford University study was conducted in a cafeteria, and each day a vegetable is described in different ways. So, for example, it says stuff like carrots with sugar-free citrus dressing. That might be one of the descriptions, whereas a health-only one might say high in antioxidants. But then they compare that with indulgent ones, like sweet sizzling green beans or crispy shallots. You get the idea. So they're trying to, instead of focusing just on the health, here's some of the numbers. The researchers found the indulgent labeling led to 25% more people choosing a vegetable compared with the basic labeling, 41% more people than the healthy restrictive labeling, and 35% more people than the healthy positive labeling. In addition, indulgent labeling also led to a 23% increase in the sheer amount of vegetables consumed compared with basic labeling. That's from Turnwald et al. Again, it was a letter to the editor in JAMA Internal Medicine. I think that should make sense, right? You can make something sound freaking delicious as opposed to this is good for you, punish yourself and consume it anyway, kind of thing. But
yeah, you notice that when you go to different restaurants too. I don't know why I've been paying attention to this lately. Maybe I've watched one too many cooking shows, but some interesting restaurants that are just like describe the food as is, and then you go to a more higher end nice restaurant and just even same thing, right? Reading the description, you're like, wow, that sounds interesting. And then there's obviously the line that goes a little bit too far where it sounds so convoluted, you're like, I don't even know what that is now.
Right, no doubt. You'll see that with, for example, the word vanilla almost is a metaphor for generic, right?
Yeah.
Go look at vanilla ice cream products. It's hilarious how they dress them up, like indulgent French vanilla bean, stuff like that. And they
It's
make
got to
it
be the
sound
Madagascar vanilla bean.
Yeah.
right. No, right, yeah. So, whatever. But, so they chose the veggies more, and they ate more of them. I think that makes sense, really. Okay. Any other news before we go to break?
Yeah, I've got one or two here. This past week I was down in Florida, so I'm working on a new program in human performance with the Carrick Institute. So they do functional neurology with Dr. Freddie Garcia, Dr. Matt Antonucci, and Dr. Kenneth J. And one of the things that we're evaluating for the program is the Halo device. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It looks like a pair of fancy headphones with a bunch of spikes in the band that goes across your head. And the little spiky area actually corresponds to, as luck would have it, the motor cortex in your brain. So they've got the little spiky area that puts out a current, what's called transcranial direct current stimulation, or TDCS. At the same time, you've got the headphones on. So you put it on for about 20 minutes before exercise, and you're doing your warm-ups. and then you have about an hour of increased plasticity. So in theory, if you have increased plasticity, you should be able to learn better and faster. As we know, strength sports, different things like that are based a lot on motor learning in addition to muscle effects also. So we ordered one. I got to play around with it for only less than 24 hours. So what we did is we unboxed it, which was pretty fun. It seemed to be pretty well made. Packaging, everything was good. Instructions were good. Put it on, and then I tried that and a set of push-ups that night. And then I tried it again the next morning, did another set of push-ups. So, I don't know. The first night I seemed to do a few more than I did that morning, and next morning I did 2 more reps than I did the night before. You know, and it won, didn't do any warm-ups or anything like that, went to the same RPE. It does feel a little weird because it's literally zapping your brain. So they need to put out enough current to get through, obviously, the skull and to hit the motor cortex, which likely is on the outside part once you get through the skull. Other than that, didn't feel too bad, just a little bit of kind of pinprickly type effect. Yeah, it was interesting. So they're going to do some more, I guess you'd call hard testing, so I had to leave it down there for them to play with and try to get it to the lab and do some more lab measurements. If people are interested, there's paper in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, which is also open access, called Transcranial Direct Current Stimulation and Sports Performance. Primary author there is Edwards, and that literally just came out May of this year, May 10th, actually. It is an opinion piece. It looks like they, as far as I could tell when you looked at the conflicts of interest, may have done some work on companies that helped create the device. But as a kind of jumping off point, if people want to track down more references and everything like that, may be worth reading. So hat tip to Dr. Kenneth J., who pulled up the study on that. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting. If you would have asked me like 2 years ago, would we ever have a consumer device that you would put on and would actually zap your brain before doing exercise, I would have said you're batshit crazy. But when they did an interview with the guys, they said that they had in the past done some work with epilepsy for an actual medical device company, an implantable device that was many years, many millions of dollars, and they were looking at doing something a little bit different. And I guess the FDA actually told them that, well, if you do a consumer-grade device, which this is, then you can get it to market like in a couple of years before anything else. So the FDA actually, at least from that statement, and other people I've heard in the industry are actually pushing more and more consumer-grade technology overall, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I know there's some cool videos on YouTube if people want to look at transcranial stimulation of the motor cortex. There's some fun, brief educational things. Never had it done though, so that must be kind of weird. But
yeah, it's just an odd sort of tingly sensation. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't pleasurable. It was just not bad. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I have some other devices here that do micropoint stimulation, and those hurt a little bit more than this. But yeah, so only downside is the price tag's kind of high. I think the retail price is like $750, so it's definitely up there in price, and I'm sure we'll see more and more data on it. But yeah, overall, I was pretty impressed with it, and it appeared to be made nice and seemed to work fairly easy for just taking it out of the box and giving it a whirl.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What else you got? Is that the main thing?
Yeah, that was the main thing.
Okay.
There's another opinion piece that's interesting in Frontiers here in Psychology, May 2017, on how mind-body practice works together, integration or separation. Last author there is Tang. It's an opinion piece, but I always find sort of the mind-body classification very interesting, and they were just giving some different points about how mind-body practice works and possible reasons why that works. And at the end, they kind of gave a little nice, summary, stating that it's integrating components of both the body, including the autonomic nervous system and the mind, and that everyone can also experience mindfulness in their own life. and they recommended like a soft music background to kind of integrate different instructions. It can help occupy the person's wandering mind. A lot of different meditation types apps like Calm and Headspace work well for that. So yeah, people are looking for some opinion piece, but they got references and stuff in there too on that. They can check that out. It's in Frontiers of Psychology, May 26, 2017.
Cool. All right, I have one piece of mail. I think I'll save this till after the break when we address different questions from around the interwebs, and we'll be back in just a minute. Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowery. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowery. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowery. You can just Google that, and I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book, but that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks. Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, folks, we're back. It's Mike and Phil and Lonnie, and we are just kind of shooting the shit today. We've got news, we've got questions from around the internet, that sort of thing, a little bit of mail. Let me start with this first one. Tom sent a message to Fortress, and Rob sent it on to me. He says, Dear Mr. Fortney, I hope you're doing well. I look forward to hearing back from you on the mic when your timetable permits. That's good, yeah. So we got to get Rob back on every once in a while, I think. I apologize for the inconvenience, but could you please forward this to Dr. Lowery? I don't do Twitter or Facebook, and I'm not certain that this type of message is good for that mechanism. Anyway, in any case, he lives in London, and he's interested in sending some samples of an osteoarthritis gel, pain relief gel. Apparently, it's not approved in the U.S. yet, but it is EU approved. So, yeah, I'm curious. He says, I'd like to send some samples. So, Tom, if you're listening, message received. I'll follow up with you. Don't hold me to this, but I think this might be a topical ketoprofen. I've seen some clinical trials with this stuff, registered at clinicaltrials.gov. I believe that's what this is. I know there's 10% ketoprofen creams and whatnot. I don't know if this is compared to that or if this is that. So I apologize, Tom. I'm not familiar. Mike, are you familiar with ketoprofen at all?
Not that much. I just barely know what it is, but nothing beyond that.
Okay. I am interested in anything I can slap on my sore elbows, though. So he says, I've been a listener for some time. I very much understand the effort that you put into the show. And this may be a way of showing some appreciation. So thanks, Tommy. I'll follow up with you on that. I've got a funny little meme I've been meaning to send Phil. It's a biker, and he's wearing a leather vest that says "Sons of Arthritis, Ibuprofen Chapter." Ibuprofen Chapter is funny. So yeah, so I don't know. That'd be interesting. I know we probably have a lot of people. I almost think joint inflammation is I don't want to say it's inevitable, but, despite what a lot of health authorities say, it's hard to not push yourself hard with heavy weights year after year and not have something light up, Yeah. But, Phil, didn't you have a question from Facebook about joint inflammation?
Yes, there's one.
Oh.
It is... Let me find the right one here. Here we go. Hope all is well. My wife is dealing with some nagging injuries. I suspect chronic inflammation may be at least partially to blame. Any recommendations to help combat this, or just some quality fish oils?
How about
that
you?
Would be his question.
How about you, Mike? Chronic inflammation.
Chronic inflammation? He doesn't say how long or anything else.
Nope.
So a couple of things I would look at. So in my head, how I split it is I'd look at mechanical and then biochemical. So mechanical, just if they can get any type of movement assessment or just try to figure out what's going on. And obviously they'll probably have to go into someone as best if they can. And just look to see, because if you've got an irritant going on, in the joint from muscles not working the way they should, or whatever you've got going on, you can do a bunch of stuff with supplements and other things, but that irritant is still going to be there, so it's going to be hard to work around it. So that's usually where I start first. I've used a lot of stuff like RPR, or Reflexive Performance Reset. I've used some PRI stuff, and anyone who's a good clinician can get you sorted out in that area, so that's helpful. More on, I guess, the supplement side, like we mentioned earlier, lots of micronutrition I found works really well. Go to the store, buy a bunch of veggies, get as many different colors as you can. That seems to help. I did a squat experiment probably 3 years ago now, where I did, on purpose in my gym here, partial squats with super heavy weight to basically give myself knee tendinosis. And then I just increased my micronutrition amount like super high. And then I played around with a couple other supplements too. And even just the micronutrition, I saw like about a 50% reduction.
Mike,
by doing that.
Can you define micronutrition for the listeners?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so there's all sorts of compounds, polyphenols, different things that basically make up the colors that we see in a lot of vegetables. Right, so we've got all of our, vitamins, B vitamins and C and things of that nature. You've got your minerals. Then you've got other things like green tea. There's lots of catechins or EGCG. Different groups kind of have their own little different phytonutrients that they have. And if you kind of go through a color checklist, so I'll have people, just follow the colors of the rainbow. And if you really want to go crazy, try to get some of those colors in on a weekly basis. Because what I've noticed sometimes is people, you say, okay, let's try to eat more vegetables. And you look and, wow, everything they eat is green. That's definitely better than what they had before. But you may want to throw in some berries at that point. You may want to throw in some more citrus, things of that nature. In terms of supplements, I know our friend Sean sent me one that I'm testing out right now. So probably have more info on that coming up. Sean Casey. And turmeric is pretty good. I've used that. Like they mentioned, fish oil I think is good. I have played around with chondroitin and MSM, things of that nature. One I've used in the past is called actistatin. It's a specific form that initially they used it on horses. They've got one study done on horse racing. So I actually read a fair amount of equine research, since horses don't have a placebo effect. And people who race horses will spend a whole bunch of money. They don't really care too much about money, and they time everything because they want to know, did the horse run faster or not. So I initially bought that one years ago as an equine supplement, the little picture of the horse on it. Mm-hmm. It didn't have the human version out yet. Even though the human version was identical. I mean, there wasn't anything illegal or anything crazy in there like that.
No Winstrol.
Yeah, so I found that helped.
No stanozolol in your equine.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. It was funny because I probably shouldn't tell them this, but whatever. On the website, they said you had to be a doctor. So I said, sure. I mean, they didn't ask that I was a vet or anything like that. And it was just a weird loophole because they were trying to, they were the primary supplier, so they wanted to supply it to vets who would then mark up the price and things of that nature. So they were just trying to control the distribution of it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and you can get the human version and stuff now, so it's no problem.
I think it's a good point about the phytochemicals and that sort of thing. What we were just talking about in the news and in past weeks, right? There's more to this. It's more nails in the coffin, I think, of the if it fits your macros. Don't get me wrong. IIFYM for a target date diet that's like 12 weeks away. Yeah, probably not going to take too much of a toll. And let's face it, macros are what draw you into nutrition initially, I think, right? Protein and its muscle building qualities, right? Or carbs for fast-paced, high-power output fuel, or fat and its nutraceutical effects. But ultimately, you start coming around to stuff that maybe originally seems more boring, like vitamins and minerals or phytochemicals. But I think it's the long-haul effects of those sorts of things. It's not the typical 3-day length of stay in a hospital. It's not the immediate something that happens that you might feel with like a high or low carb diet, that kind of thing. It's the inflammation and joint and soft tissue kind of repair and maintenance. You're just not, in my opinion, going to do that with Twinkies and cheese puffs, as your carb and fat source, when you can be doing with blueberries and stuff like you mentioned, green tea and all that sort of stuff. So,
yeah, and so much of that we don't even understand, let alone what compounds are in there, let alone what the compounds are useful for, and then you add combinations on top of that, and it's going to be a long time before we get all that sorted out.
Right. Before we hit record, everyone, I actually was talking to Phil and Mike about. I saw a paper, and I don't have the author, but it was arguing that at least in some respects, just curry powder may be more effective than like a curcumin extract, that kind of stuff, like turmeric powder, curry powder, a little bit more to the source. And that may, if it's true, speak to the idea of all these phytochemicals working in kind of unknown ways. We've talked about that before. Beta carotene. Phil had a good point. Coffee's like that, right? Coffee's not just liquid caffeine. There's hundreds of compounds in coffee. We get more antioxidants from coffee than we do from fruits and vegetables in the U.S. I mean, that's a sad commentary on our fruit and veg intake, but yeah, so interesting stuff with that. And I do think inflammation, to the listener question, that's part of that. I think you need to nail it down. Like, to me, berries are such a hugely impactful thing. I think probably 4 days a week, probably every other day, I'll have oatmeal with berries, mixed berries in it. And this is the time of year, go snag the berries and freeze them, because put them on a cookie sheet so they don't freeze into a block. And you got fresh berries essentially all year, but that's powerful medicine. When I gave a lecture in Oxford years ago, almost everyone I spoke to there that were speaking, we were having breakfast, of course, in one of those old Harry Potter-esque sort of, medieval looking dining halls, and they're like, oh, me too, berries almost every day, berries. I'm like, wow. So I guess I'm not alone. The people in the know. So from a compliance perspective, if it's too hard to think about this comprehensive phytochemical micronutrient plan, or if you're not going to work with someone, if you don't have any problems with berries, I think it's a good place to start. Try to eat those fairly regularly. Try to cook with a little curry powder here and there if you can, and get away from just processed crap. But yeah, fish oils I think would be probably number one on almost everybody's list for anti-inflammatory. You got to take enough to matter, though. I take 4 triple strength fish oils every morning. So you can't putz around with really low dose stuff with the fish oils. But again, you'd have to talk to your doctor, I guess.
And one quick comment on micronutrition too. If people travel, like I was doing a seminar, I was helping out with one in Costa Rica this past year. One of their guys down there, Sachin Patel, we were at this little convenience store, and he's like, "Oh, you got to try this drink." I looked at it, I'm like, "God, that looks horrible." And it was, I think, coconut, like super high amounts of turmeric because it was bright yellow. And they put like cardamom, cinnamon, black pepper, and a couple other things in there I can't remember right now. I can't remember the name of it either, but it was a drink that you could buy like pre-made in the store that I guess a lot of the locals drink. And later I was looking at the label and thinking, that's a pretty cool way. Maybe you get a little bit more absorption of the turmeric compounds. You get a lot of other micronutrition from, the spices and things that are in there.
Sounds like chai. Almost like a chai.
It was almost like a chai, but with turmeric.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always find it interesting that if you kind of seek out more local food when you travel, that a lot of it tends to be very micronutrition rich too if you go back far enough in time.
Yeah, compared to the U.S., we're like the the evil overlords of nutrition here.
Yeah,
food industry. This sounds maybe gross, and I was doing it specifically for the turmeric. But I went to a local Indian grocer. Little guy from India. He's got this little setup here, and you could tell it's authentic because everything's like. It's not fancy, Americanized. It's pretty low end, legitimate, authentic looking, kind of grocer. And I just got a bunch of turmeric powder and I threw it in with peanut butter and vanilla whey protein shakes. And it's weird. Like you said, it's bright yellow, and you could probably get fancy with some of those other chai tea sort of herbs. But because I've tried cooking with some of this stuff, curry powder and turmeric and stuff, and everything, it stains everything bright yellow. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine what that's doing to my teeth and everything else. I don't know what it does to your teeth. I'm just speculating, but yeah, it was a way for me to just hammer in very large amounts of, in fact, a dietitian on Twitter said, "You're never going to consume that much curry," and it's gone. So, yeah.
Watch me.
Yeah, watch me. So
sounds like a challenge.
Well, to your point often, Mike, that a lot of these, one of the drawbacks with a lot of the phytochemicals, resveratrol and curcumin, is they're just not highly bioavailable. So, yeah, adding some fat or just consuming larger amounts in meals and that sort of stuff, that might be one way to at least try to address it, I guess.
Yeah.
So, anything else, Phil? What do we got from?
I got a couple things. We can do this one first. It's more of a comment here, but there was another. So of late, everybody knows that like one of the benefits that CrossFit has been is bringing more lifters into powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting and stuff like that than probably ever. Like powerlifting is probably in the biggest upswing it's ever been, and weightlifting is on the way up too. You're seeing more and more people do this, and a lot of that, their gateway drug is CrossFit. That's what I kind of call it now. Well, now they're coming in and lifting in USAW meets and consistently getting popped for drugs. So we had another one, another girl that lifts in CrossFit competition, and I don't know. The higher ups are saying that maybe they think that testing in USAW is the same as the testing in CrossFit, but it's not working out well. So. Yet another one popped, and not only was she went and did a meet, they tested her. In the time that test was being processed, she did another meet, they tested her. She got popped at both meets.
Oh, jeez.
An 8-year ban, 4 years for each test. So there's a bunch of people in USAW that are like, knock this off. You're hurting the sport.
Right.
It's already in a bad spot with all that back testing.
Oh yeah.
At the edge of just getting booted from the games. Right. And they're like, you're gonna be the final nail in the coffin if you guys keep doing this.
Are they technically bad, Phil? Are the CrossFitters are they pretty good when they enter the USAW kinds of things, or? I
mean, there's some that have transitioned over that are extremely well.
Like technically good, they're great good lifters.
So, like I think Maddie Rogers was originally in CrossFit stuff. And that's how she found, and now she's like one of our number one lifters.
Okay.
So, Yeah, I think they come in and do well, but it's realizing you just can't do that.
You know what? This sounds very. Let me ask you. This sounds very naive, and I know you don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, Phil. But are drugs sort of quite prevalent in CrossFit? Because when I first started watching CrossFit, like when I saw it on television, like competition, I was stunned. Like the girls have apples for traps, and I'm like, okay, that's not clean, right? Now, I'm not saying they're all like that, right? But is there a lot of that? 'Cause this almost suggests there is.
Well, this is, mainly
High level.
Purely anecdotal evidence and just hearsay. But from what I know, yes. And it's one of those deals where if you're in the good graces of HQ, it kind of gets swept under the rug. And the thing is, you're seeing is like the people that get popped are like, it's never the top people. The ones that are like
pretty far down usually.
Yeah, it's not the princesses and princes of the HQ. It's like we've got to put up somebody. So it's somebody not in their good graces who ends up getting knocked out. Like they were all amazed that you guys all know who Laura Phelps is. West Side lifter.
West Side.
Which those guys are blatantly, not quiet about their use of performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
She was doing a team competition, decided to enter CrossFit in team, and like the whole community was amazed she got popped. And I was like,
what?
Yeah. She has more testosterone than I do.
Oh, yeah.
And is open about it. So I don't know. It's one of these weird things. It's this whole, it's funny to me because the community as of itself is very like paleo and nary a gram of gluten will cross my lips. But these Anavar tabs are great. It's like they preach this totally healthy lifestyle, and all these people watching it and following CrossFit are very much into that, and then they're surprised that somebody would be on performance enhancing drugs. I'm sorry, you put up $250,000 to a winner.
Yeah,
that's gonna. You can't tell me that some people aren't gonna do whatever it takes to win that.
Yeah,
that's with any competition.
Oh yeah, and that's not just CrossFit. You could easily. I could give me half of that, and I could easily live for a year. Well, and I could just go train. So it's just kind of funny. And then I don't know. I think you're seeing these people, like I said, they're coming in. Well, I'll do USAW. I didn't get. I was okay in CrossFit. Well, the testing is kind of a joke. There's no out of season testing. There's no. So it's just in season, and if you get called upon, type of thing. So if you know anything about use, basically they've got all year to do whatever they want, and then, well, maybe I'll clean up for the games.
Right, taper down,
type of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, now to be fair, because I'm not really in the CrossFit world, and I know what you're saying. It does seem a little hypocritical with all the discipline and the sort of bravado and the health. Is there? I got to think, though, there's a distinction between the everyman who just goes to his local CrossFit box and trains, and you're not necessarily going to see drugs until you get to the elite stuff.
Yes.
Right? Is that fair? Yeah.
No, I'd agree. Well, and I think probably there is some at the local level, too. But I think that the crazy thing is that, like in powerlifting, when I look up to some of the best lifters, most of them are out about it. So you just know that they're at that in this sport. It's like it's the opposite. These people that are just starting out in a box really believe that none of these people would ever do anything like that.
Right.
And
I'm sorry, but
God. They would never do that. And it's like, they are. And like you said, I don't have evidence, but if you just watch it and you know anything about the human body and how it works and what level of muscularity and leanness it can get to naturally, I'm sorry, not every one of those people is a genetic freak.
No,
that many of them.
To that point, Fortress and I,
to that extent.
Yeah, we were backstage at so many national and pro competitions in bodybuilding that you get to the point, and again, I can't really support this except to say experience, right? Intelligence guided by experience.
Yes.
Yeah, you can not just tell who's on. You can tell what they're on with a fair degree of accuracy. You know, this guy looks like he's on Winstrol. That is not the same look as someone on testosterone and anthate, right? Or Deca.
Yes.
Or and you can kind of see that, and then when you add the performance cues with it, I mean, you'd have to be naive not to be able to.
Yes.
You know, understand some of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think it's just but I mean, gosh, it's like anything though. I mean, the whole American culture really thinks that most athletes are clean because they have no clue. And the reality of it in all sports, it's there. It just is. You know, and it's especially in sports that have a lot of money. And it's not going anywhere. And it just amazes me that people are like, "Oh, I can't believe Barry Bonds was doing that." Well, look at his contract. He has millions and millions of dollars. He just extended it 4 years and made, now his grandkids don't have to work.
Right. Right. Another generation.
So,
you know what? I think it's a dichotomy. It's sort of this bimodal thing where people either are so naive, they're like, "Oh, he looks so fantastic. How does he eat and train?" You know, I mean, I've actually known guys that were pretty high-level competitors. That was their slap in the face against naive people, right? They'd be like, they'd say, what do you do? And they just look at him with an evil grin and say, hard training and proper nutrition. You know, and almost like mocking them. But then there are the other people, I think they're equally clueless, and they think, oh, that guy's just on steroids. You know, as if everybody who's amazing, like if you could just take an injection or pop, like you were, to your point, Phil, pop some Anavar, and then you're amazing. That's equally stupid. So people are either in the camp that they're so naive they think all their heroes are not using, or that's their excuse for everything. Oh, he's just on steroids.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
like
I'll tell you what.
My girls that pulls over 300.
Exactly.
Oh, they're on drugs. No,
Right.
they're not.
It's like
they just work really hard.
No, right.
know.
It's like, listen, smart ass. Here's 3 bottles of Anavar tabs. Go for it. You know. 16 weeks. We'll see what you've got. I bet it's nothing. I bet it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be like a poster child for side effects, and you're still not gonna be a champion.
Yes. So, anyways, I mean, I guess the commentary on this, the best commentary is like, it's going to be interesting to see the outplay of weightlifting as an Olympic sport with all this testing going on. I mean, there's just a lot of people being popped of late. And if they were like, they almost kicked wrestling out of the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's a bigger sport than weightlifting by far as how many people do it. And the viewership. So who knows, it might be in trouble if they keep digging, which we've talked about before. I think that in and of itself is stupid. Because they're kicking themselves in the butt.
Oh, they're soiling athletics in general. Yeah.
Yes, they're going back 8 years, and it's like, you guys are opening a can you might not want to open.
No.
Because you're going to find out that all sports are just riddled, and then the person in third, fourth place is now the winner.
What's the book? So. There was a famous book about how bad it would be if we had 100% transparency. I can't remember what the name of the book is, but this is another good example of that. Kelly knows. I should ask her. But yeah, that was the idea of this author, right? Like, let me paint you a picture where everything is completely transparent, and we'll see what the world is like. Like everybody doesn't want audited on every single thing down to. It doesn't mean everybody's dishonest. It just means there are some things. Like you're saying, Phil, it does become. I don't want to sound like Trump has lately with it's a witch hunt, but sometimes it does become a bit of a witch hunt in those regards. And if the rules were different on that day back then, like we've said before, it's almost a context switch. Like you can't apply different rules. That wasn't the rule of the day. That's what happened on that day. I don't, I'm not condoning or condemning anything. I'm just saying you're trying to retro apply stuff that, that's a mistake.
Yeah, and it's not saying those people were right, but they passed the testing of the time. Just let it be. Because if not, they're going to go back to 1980 or whatever when Dianabol came on the scene. It's just everybody's going to be, let's test all the way back. Well, everyone fails. Yeah. So we just got to redo the 1984 Olympics.
Right.
Right. I mean, I'd love to see a study that would somehow look and say, well, if we just test you on the day of and call it good there, or we go back 8 years
Yeah.
Is going back 8 years really going to deter that many more people from doing it? I kind of have my doubts on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, when
it's still gonna happen,
I think, of like almost all of the Tour de France guys suddenly are illegitimate and popped.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're left with essentially no sport. Like there isn't even a sport of cycling now. Now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So
exactly. You're going back that many years and stripping titles, and the fact was they still had that fame for 8 years. And as an Olympic athlete, you're lucky if you let's say you win a gold and people know who you are for a year.
Yeah.
So your fame's already done by the time they retest. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And like you said with the Tour de France, how far do you go back, right? So now you're at, 23rd place. You're now the winner.
Yeah. You were a day, 24 hours behind, and you won now. So, anyway, it was kind of interesting. But our next question is, which I'll just touch on briefly. I got to go here in a minute, but we had a guy. He's got a powerlifting background. He's now getting into throwing, so shot put, Highland Games, stuff like that. And he asked how you go about implementing jump training specifically for throwers, shot Highland Games, into your training, which I thought was interesting because it's kind of a place I've tied on to. And the first thing I told him was just the number one thing to realize is that if you're, let's say, even if he's a decent power lifter and he's coming into throwing sports, I don't even think it's so much the dynamic ability he has. He's got the strength and most likely the power. It's just he doesn't know how to use it. So the number one thing he needs to do is just throw more.
Yeah.
Because it's not just throwing isn't just dynamic power and being able to display your strength. It's in a very technical way.
Yeah, skill.
And that's what he lacks. He lacks the skill. He doesn't lack the power output. It's learning how to do that in the right way. You're coming from a very a single plane sport into one where now you're running in circles. It's totally different than a squat. So I mean, yeah, I think some jump training and things like that can benefit maybe in your warm up. But other than that, I mean, I think you just need to get your gym time down for a while and your field time up.
Practice.
Your strength is there. I know plenty of people. I've got one in my gym who's this is second year as a lightweight Highland Games thrower, and he's doing okay. But he goes out there and realizes he's stronger than everybody else he's competing against and losing to. He's literally stronger than them. So it's like, maybe we just need to throw a lot more.
Right.
And that's the number one thing, I think. Again, I'm not saying that speed work, box jumps, and even like for Highland Games, what I told him was, jump training's great, but you're talking like a 16-pound shot in Olympic throwing or high school, collegiate, whatever, compared to like a 56-pound weight. Highland Games is heavier. It's there's some load there, and that's where I think classical jump training and stuff like that, which is just body weight, it helps, but it's not as big of a payoff as, say, some heavy swings, some hang snatches, things like you need to move weight at a high rate of speed.
Phil,
in Highland Games.
Yeah.
I think when it's back to the old principle, it's the specificity principle.
Yes.
You're going to have to be explosive in that motor pattern. Starting a little bit maybe slower at first, and then doing it as more explosively as you develop. But it's specificity.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that can jump really high and they're very explosive, but you give them 56 pounds to explode with, not so much. It's very specific, and that's where that's where Highland Games kind of crosses the barrier, and that's why I liked it. It crosses the barrier between two things I like. It's being explosive with fairly heavy weights. Throwing 56 pounds for height. It's an expression of power and strength. So,
Phil, did you because I know you used to say, maybe this is the other side of the coin, but you used to say that you weren't technically the best, but you were really strong. And
that's the only way I made it to A class.
Yeah, you kind of rode that, right?
And that's I still call myself a horrible Highland Games thrower, but I'm in A class. Like if I walk out today, which I'd like to compete again, I'll just never drop the B class again. It's just because I'm strong. I can go out there and if I want to be better, I need to just stop my gym time and go throw a lot, and that's it. I mean, I'm technically horrible, and that proved itself. Like I went to A class games here, one of my last ones, and it poured on us all day. And so I'm going to start searching out games where it's raining, because you get on a muddy field and like technique goes out the window. So it's like my perfect place. Your technique is horrible when you're sloshing through mud for everybody.
That's a good strategy.
So that's where my strength came and paid off. It was like, I can beat you guys all on a muddy field.
Right. Because now everybody technically sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Because now all of our technique is at the same level. And my technique is no better on dry ground than it is on wet ground.
There you go.
So
you can dominate. You'll get some nickname like, Rainy Day Phil.
Yeah, I'll get out the Farmer's Almanac and start searching for games that meet up when it says 4. So
Phil's going to pay for cloud seeding above the fence.
There you go. Right.
So, that was kind of his question. I don't know if you guys have anything to add in there. People were telling, like I said, put it in your warm-ups. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think that's a good idea for powerlifters. Like, if I'm going to go heavy in a squat, I start out with the bar and 135, moving it very quickly.
Agreed. Yeah, that makes sense. It's efficient.
Like yeah. So, and you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Like, I think it's a good idea to maybe, if you're deadlifting heavy today, maybe start off with cleans. You're getting things moving quick. And then it just, the load on the bar demands on how you lift it from there on out. And at some point, sorry, I'm not going to clean 500 pounds. Yeah. I'm going to start doing my deadlifts now. So,
yeah, I have a client I'm working with. He's trying out for the Olympic bobsled combine coming up, and that's one thing we did is we flipped his deadlift and cleans because he's very limited for time due to his day job and family. So he was doing cleans after deadlifts, and you could tell they just wasn't much there. So we flip-flopped them and put them first. So you're more warmed up. You've got more speed and power, those types of things first. And like you said, Phil, is even if they're not that good that day, you still get a little bit better practice in a better state, and then it serves as a warm up for your deadlift too.
Yeah, I think that's one thing you can learn from Olympic weightlifters. That's you never see them. Okay, we're going to do our squats and our pulls first. No, they do their technical speed work, their lifts, and then you move on to the just straining work.
Yeah, limit strength.
Mm-hmm. So that's their assistance. So, and that's one thing you need to realize. I mean, as a thrower, anything done in the gym is assistance work to your sport.
Right. Yeah.
Football, baseball. The chunk of your time needs to be done at your sport. Anything in the gym is assistance work to make you better at that. It doesn't matter if you have a 700-pound squat if you can't hit the ball as a baseball player.
Right, yeah.
That's not going to help you hit better. You need to get out and do more swings. So, no, that's kind of where I'm at. So,
all right. No, good stuff. Well, I think that's a show.
Sweet.
Yeah, we had a few other questions here, but I'll save them for next time, and we'll get to them then.
Excellent. Yeah,
I'm going to go lift heavy things. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Cool. See ya.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store. One for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowery, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.